Good morning. Thank you, Dr. Williams, for making time today to help us have a late celebration of DNA Day. I know we tried to record this the other day, and I'm looking forward today to try and encapsulate and capture the views of you're helping us to understand really the challenges with our DNA and what it means when somebody talks about DNA. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here to kind of guide our talk. And so welcome to DNA Day. And as we look at DNA, I just want to quickly summarize what kind of things lead to DNA damage, and what would you say that you see in your field of DNA research is some of the things that cause the highest amount of damage that you see in your research area?
Well, there's really two main factors that drive causes of DNA damage, and they are broken into environmental toxins or pollution, as well as also the inability to repair damage really drives the amount of damage that cells accumulate.
Okay. And you know, a lot of times a simplest way is you can tell there's DNA damage. What I sometimes tell people, when somebody looks bad, when their hair, their skin and their hair. But a lot of times people in the healthcare field, I find that people don't understand that DNA is the underpinning of where we get a lot of different diseases. So what I'd like a little bit to kind of set the stage, talk a little bit about DNA damage and how you have looked at this in your research as a DNA researcher.
So I've looked at both types, multiple types of DNA damage, the inability to repair DNA damage at certain regions in the genome, and then finding out and investigating why that certain region of the genome has a problem with DNA repair, and then the machinery involved in DNA repair, as well as how different environmental carcinogens really drive mutagenesis in a specific way, and then also how your DNA repair fixes that.
Can you tell us what do you mean by mutagenesis?
So mutagenesis is just a fancy way to say mutations or DNA damage.
Okay.
So DNA damage is basically where you have one of your DNA molecules or nucleotide gets changed, or something gets put inside of it, and this change can be very small, like the base pair changes, or it can be very large, where you have huge parts of your chromosome that are deleted, duplicated, or even chromosomes switching over.
Okay.
And then you can also have your toxinogens, kind of get in your DNA, and this causes problems with the repair or the accurate metabolism of the DNA.
So you help us to understand that it's quite a complicated process, this DNA.
It's extremely complicated, yeah.
Okay. Because
each type of damage has its own specific repair system, and the different repair systems kind of back each other up. So if one is non-functional for whatever reason, you usually have a different type of repair system. It may not be quite as accurate, but it allows the DNA at least to be continued to be used in some sort of manner.
So it's kind of like a broken car. It still keeps your body keeps on rolling along. It's just might not be working so hot.
Sure, yeah.
I'm into some.
Just think of a billion cars that make up your body, and a few of them are going to have problems.
Okay. Well, one of the studies that is one of my favorite ones that looks at DNA has I've always used DNA. It's kind of looking at the body blueprint. like if you were to build a house, you have a blueprint. And my favorite example is one of my friends had a house built that they flipped the plan upside down. So they flipped it, and so the garage came at the wrong part of the property. It was a great example. That wasn't how they wanted the house, but they made it work. But they really didn't want their garage on that side of the house. But this study with DNA repairs is really, compared to your area of research, looks like a very simplistic research study, is that they just measured the total DNA. Do you see this type of research done in your field, or is yours much higher level, more of a cellular level research?
So this is looking at a large population of cells, and in my research, we've always looked at very specific regions of the genome.
Okay.
But this looks on a whole cell level, and basically how it works, if your DNA is intact, it's going to be very large. But when you get damage, pieces break off, and that's why you see the tail. Those are broken pieces of DNA that migrate differently on this gel.
Oh, okay. Okay. So a long tail means there's more damage. So like, for instance, in this picture. So
Correct.
this is one of the studies that I think from a picture point of view, some people seem to understand, is that after taking this whole food supplement, there was a 66% reduction in DNA after just 80 days, or they got shorter tails. Would that be an appropriate way to say that in simple layman's terms?
Yeah, their DNA was more intact. It had less damage, so you have it in the bigger chunks and smaller tails.
Okay. So,
And this could be from either an increase in oxidative damage, so the cell's a little more healthier, or it also could be from an increase in the ability for the DNA to repair itself.
good. So we like short tails. So tell us, with DNA repair, we all know that when your car is broken, you go into the mechanic to fix it. So how do we repair our DNA? I don't think most people understand that concept. It sounds simple, but I know it's not.
Mm-hmm. So your DNA is damaged every single day. You start off as one cell, and you become a billion cells. And every time that you have another cell, from that one and multiply to a billion, your DNA has to replicate itself. And when it's replicating, it makes mistakes pretty frequently. However, you have proteins that we refer to as the DNA repair system that actually go in and can fix this damage through multiple mechanisms. And when your DNA repair system doesn't work very well, say you have a protein that's not very functional, you're predisposed to cancer, such as like the BRCA mutation. That's a mutation in a DNA repair gene. And since your DNA repair doesn't work very well because you have a mutation, you accumulate damage faster, which eventually will lead to cancer.
Oh, that's a good example. I think a lot of people have heard of the BRCA gene, especially women who might be listening.
Of course, that is the DNA repair gene that deals with double-stranded breaks. We also get damaged through just daily cellular metabolism. When your cell makes energy, it has oxidative damage from just the cellular process, and this is also repaired by DNA repair. Even UV damage can be fixed by DNA repair. So there's, those two types of damage, and once again, each different type of damage has its own repair system.
Wow. It is a really complicated science, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not, having been taught nursing and health for a long time. One of this is a video that I loved the picture of how they put the fruits and vegetables in the DNA strand. And this was a study that I was reading last night, and I think I shared it with you, that I read research studies all the time, and this one was a little bit up over the top as far as understanding this whole idea of how nutrition affects our genes and the whole idea of gene expression. Can you tell us a little bit about what do they mean about gene expression? I think people understand that nutrition affects your body, but I don't think they understand how it may affect your DNA. Can you help us a little bit understand that?
Yeah, so, I mean, our DNA is, once again, the blueprint, right? It's the instructions to make proteins, which do the machines, the little machines that are inside your cell. And this DNA can be read differently. It can make the instructions or not make the instructions. It can also make these instructions at different levels. And the level that it makes the instructions, so it goes from DNA to the instructions called RNA, which then is read to make the protein. And the level it makes these instructions can vary, and this is called gene expression level.
Oh,
and
okay.
So an example is you have a heart cell or you have a skin cell. They have pretty much the exact same DNA-based content, but they're way different cells and do a completely different function because the DNA is read differently, or their gene expression patterns are vastly different.
Okay.
And certain things can cause the ability of this gene expression to increase or decrease, like they showed in this study.
Can you tell us a little bit about, as I was reading the different labs that they did an analysis, they called it microarray analysis, PCR analysis. For people who aren't lab people, what does that really mean? Simplistically.
So basically, both of these two, PCR and microarray, are two different methods to measure the amount of instruction for a given gene. So you have, once again, you have your DNA. It is read into RNA, which is processed. And then this level of RNA is pretty much an indicator of how much protein is produced. Not always, but usually. Once again, the protein is the machine that carries out whatever task. So these two different methods measure the amount of RNA in a given set of cells.
Okay. So with this study, I know you referred me to a table that had the results, and there was some discussion. Most people who would be listening to this probably would just want to have the take-home message about what does this study mean for people who might be obese, that have maybe high cholesterol levels, maybe have some diabetes lurking in their background. What is this study and the results mean for that?
Yeah, I found it very interesting. So you can look at this gene expression and you know exactly what genes are increasing in the clinical trial and what genes are decreasing. And what they found was that the genes that synthesize the cholesterol molecules, so they're obviously necessary to make cholesterol, the expression of those genes is decreased. So the little machines that make the cholesterol, there's not as many, so it lowers cholesterol.
Oh.
Also, they had an increase in some DNA repair genes. So you have more genes. Usually that means you have the ability to repair the DNA better, or at least you're not running into a lack of DNA repair. So that could explain how they found lower DNA damage and lower cholesterol.
Wow. Okay. Just what people have always been told, that one of the secrets of lowering your cholesterol is to eat a diet high in fruits and vegetables. And this shows very nicely how it's
Hmm.
difficult in a science to everybody eats different fruits and vegetables. And so this really kind of levels the playing field. Is a there's not as everybody's eating the same thing.
Hmm. Yeah, it was very interesting.
Very interesting. And I know one of the things is this was one of the slides that talks about what people don't realize when we have inflammation in our body. You talked about metabolism and energy, how you take care of the sugar that you eat in your body, and the cholesterol. And I think the take-home message from this slide that I borrowed from somebody else shows that basically fruits and vegetables um, do help to clean up the body, is
Hmm.
and help it to repair. And I know you think this my analogy is kind of funny, but I think it's like STP. You
Like what?
STP, you put in your
Oh,
carburetor. When
yeah,
you're running kind of sluggish, you put STP in, and hopefully your car is going to run a little bit better. So, I know, very
yeah.
simplistic.
It. I mean, you kind of make a good point there because each your cell is a finely tuned machine, and it needs certain nutrients, it needs certain amino acids, different metals to be able to function properly. And it's hard to get all these different nutrients you need for that machine. So um, I agree with you.
Yeah.
That's a good analogy.
I work with kids, and so helping children to understand why they need to eat their fruits and vegetables, I find it very easy to say they're the cleaner uppers,
Yeah.
because kids do understand how they make messes, and
Hmm.
they
Some
understand.
do.
Some do, or they like to make messes. Um,
Yeah.
but it's a simple message that if we eat fruits and vegetables, it helps clean our body, which is basically making sure we have good instructions to make the important body parts or tissue. Would that be a simplistic take-home message from today?
Sure.
Well, I find most people don't understand DNA very well, except that they know it's got a really pretty helix and it looks
Well,
cool.
it's a rapidly developing field, especially since the human genome was first released in 2003. It's really aided researchers um, to investigate exactly what DNA is doing and how it changes with things like your nutrition or stress. So, I'm sure there's going to be more to come in the following years.
So this is an exciting area. So we're lucky that
I personally think so, but
we're
I'm biased.
we're lucky that you took time from your busy day today to help us to understand a little bit more of this 15-page paper that is above. I would say, even unless you have a specialist in DNA repair, you might not get it. So thank you for taking the time today. I'm going to stop this recording right now.